Okay, about ready to get started here. Okay, now to get started here. The realignment that's coming. Let's talk about that. Okay, let's get this camera situated. Okay. Now, if you've been watching politics, if you watch politics much like I do, then you know that things are happening. Things are happening in the United States. Not very good things. And people are already talking about and thinking about a blue wave. And they are right about that. I get myself centered here a little bit more. They are right about that. There's going to be a blue wave. But it's going to be more than that. It's going to be a realignment. Now, let me explain what that is. Because some people use the word and they don't really quite know what it is, or if they do, they don't explain it to their listeners to what really it is. It's not merely like a wave. A wave kind of comes and then it goes. So like think of there have been some wave years in the past. Probably the most famous one is the wave year after Watergate. Big wave year. The Democrats really really had a wave, and they took Congress, House, and the Senate really well in 1974. But, and that might have helped get Carter elected in 76. But that really went away real fast. Republicans were back, and they were just as powerful and just as strong as they ever were by 76. So that's a wave. It just whoosh, comes in and then goes away. And they're usually based upon like a single issue or a single problem. And single issues and single problems can come and go, either because the problem gets solved or because other things come along and take the attention and people think are more important. So what was once, 1 or 2 on their list now becomes 5 or 6. So that's a wave now. So what's a realignment? A realignment is when people really shift their allegiances, their identities. They voted one way, one party all their life, and now they're shifting and they're going to vote for the other party for the rest of their life. That happens once in a while or occasionally. Now, there actually was a very interesting wave period. I won't call it a year, but a period in the 1980s that was really kind of extraordinary. And it's usually not thought of as a wave because it didn't really shift the political balance. And what was weird about it, and a lot of people recognize, and we'll talk about, and even a lot of the analysts will talk about the GOP taking over the South. The South had always been solidly Democratic since the Civil War. And the GOP came over and took it over and kicked the Democrats out, which happened. And that is a realignment. But that was only one half of it. The other half was the Democrats coming in and kicking the GOP out of New England. New England was once filled with the Henry Cabot Lodge Republicans, and New England was solid Republican since the Civil War, except for Boston. Boston was the one island. But other than that, it was solid Republican. And the Democrats came in and kicked them out. And that had to do with the party realigning their own philosophies and so forth. I don't want to get into that. That's another history. But because of that, I call that period the Great Reshuffle. Instead of a great realignment, it's a great reshuffle because the end result was that by, let's say, 1992, the political balance between Republicans and Democrats was pretty much the same as it was in 1980, but different. The players were different. The states were different. How the states were aligned were different. And so that was, and so I call that the Great Reshuffle. So the balance was still roughly there. The balance between Democrats and Republicans was not much different in '92 than it was in 1980. Okay, now what's going on now? Well, it's a little bit hard to it's a little bit hard to analyze and understand because Trump really is he's a different duck altogether. He's not like any traditional politician, left or right, or any politician of any kind. He's his own person. That's for sure. So that makes him a little bit hard to understand, and also what he's doing is bizarre, to say the least. Just one little thing. I mean, and you might have noticed this. I'd be surprised if you didn't. Trump has a history of attacking the people in his own party, criticizing them more than he does the Democrats. That's weird. That's very weird. I mean, other politicians, they might have one person in their party that they kind of have a problem with, but not like Trump. You know, Trump has a problem with a person, and and it's often in his own party, and he threatens to primary them and kick them out, like Cassidy down in Louisiana. And then other ones he loves, like Ashley Moody in Florida. We're going to be talking about them, by the way. They're part of the realignment. Now, if you watch the various analysts, like Let's Talk Elections, Cook or Silver, and some of these other prognosticators, in my opinion, their analytical technique, their process, is broken right now. It doesn't work. It won't work. It's not that it's a wrong analysis. It's just a wrong analysis for now. Because what do they do? They look at polls now. Great. Okay, that's a good place to start. Look at the present polls. And then look back at previous elections and patterns from last year, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, even 20 years ago. And they'll look at that, see how it is, and they'll look at that, and they'll balance things out and say, oh, well, next year is going to be this pattern, and therefore this should happen. Problem is, Trump has upended all that. The Republican Party today is not what it was 10, 15 years ago. It's hardly what it was 2 or 3 years ago. So doing that analysis is a bit tough. And actually mistaken. My process is a bit different. What I do is I look at the present polls, but I also discount the polls a bit because the present polling structure is it's somewhat broken. I mean, look at what's going on, and I mean, this is a square I've been trying to get circled for the past year since Trump took office. Is that he comes into office, and then all of a sudden, we get these little by-elections and these, special elections in various places, and there's this consistent 15 to 20 point swing to the left, to the Democrats. And it's consistent. 10 points was the lowest. All the others, higher. Sometimes quite high, quite a bit higher. And yet the polls keep showing tight races. And there's this disconnect between what the polls show and what really happens at the voting booth. I think I have one idea that might explain it. I don't know if it does. There's like I said, there's a lot of factors. I think one of the things is that what Trump has done for good or bad, one thing he's done is he's gotten a lot of people pissed off, and a lot of Democrats and a lot of independents. And the thing with Democrats, at least, they have a history of not voting. The Democrats always have a problem getting the vote out. Not so much Republicans. Republicans have a much easier time getting their vote out. I'm not exactly sure why that is. I'm sure somebody's analyzed that. If they did, I'd like to learn about that. why the Republicans can get their people out to vote so much more easily than Democrats. But that's a part of the problem the Democrats have had. Well, Trump and his actions and words and behavior, he's kind of fixed that problem. The Democratic voter is basically pissed off, and so they're coming out in droves, and the independents are also pissed off. I think when the independents are a little bit. I believe independents more than the Democrats and Republicans. The independents are really more. And this is just my feeling on it. I don't have research evidence to back me up. Sorry about that. How could I say? No, this thing gotten out of sync. Oh, crap. Was in sync before, and now it's not. Oh, and there's not much I could do about it. Sorry about that. Well, it doesn't matter. We're going to be looking at some other things anyway. You don't have to be looking at my face. I want to take a look at this. Okay. There we go. I think you should be seeing the map. There we go. There. Now you're seeing the map of the coming Senate race. This is the current assessment by 270 to win, and this is what they think. Let me show you what I think is going to happen. Well, first of all, I think these states, I think the toss-up states are all going to go Democrat. I think that's a virtual given. Oops. Okay. Yeah, one thing, and we'll talk about Maine one of these days, but Maine was an interesting one. I had Maine picked for going blue since last summer when Susan Collins had a 14% approval rate. So that nobody's getting elected with that low of approval rate. So I got her. So these are the states that are going to go blue. And if that happens, we end up with the 49-47 with two independents that go Democrats. So that's actually 51. But it's going to be worse than that for them because Louisiana is a given blue now. Excuse me. There we go. And the reason why that is because they went to a closed primary system, and that means Cassidy can't win, and there's going to be a very right-wing, Trump-supporting candidate there. And that actually is not a red or blue state. That actually is a purple state because Democrats and Republicans are almost tied in terms of registration there, and there's like a 20-25% independent block there, which is quite large. And the independents, I don't know if you looked at polls lately, but the independents are breaking towards the Democrats, so like by 70-30. So I think that's a lock. Same thing here. Joni Ernst has decided not to run in Iowa, and I think Iowa's a lock to go blue. Another one I think is a lock is Florida, oddly enough. And the reason why that is because two major things happen there. One you probably know about is the tourism crash there because of Trump's assaults on Canada or verbal assaults on Canada, and the Canadians have stopped coming down there. So the snowbirds aren't coming down with their billions of dollars that they spend every year, and so Florida's hurting because of the collapse of tourism. And there's other aspects to the collapse of tourism than the Canadians, but that's probably the biggest one. The other one, though, and this is the truly big one that nobody's talking about, is the Cuban American vote, which has always been solid Republican since Kennedy canceled the Bay of Pigs invasion. The Cuban Americans have always been solid Republican, and they thought that they were, a special group within the Republican Party. Well, DeSantis and Trump have proved them wrong. They detained someone by the name of Isidro Perez last summer, and he died in detention. And he was a 75-year-old man, totally harmless. And from the Cuban American point of view, they killed him. And meanwhile, they not just that, they're also harassing and abusing Cuban American citizens, on the street. So Cuban Americans are PO'd to the nth degree. So that's and so they've gone Democrat. That alone would make any race in Florida a toss up. But because of all the other things that they're doing to piss off other people for other reasons, I see Ashley Moody doesn't have it. I don't think she has a ghost and a snowball's chance in hell of getting elected. So that puts us at 52. Well, I also see Ohio going blue. I also see Kentucky going blue, mainly because of the booze boycott. Canada's not buying any of the booze, so there are distilleries going out of business because of that. So I see that as being a blue. They're going to go Democrat. Alaska, I believe, is going to go Democrat. And surprise, surprise, I think Texas is going to go Democrat this year. I think that Cronin is really not well liked. He doesn't really have a popularity base. I don't think he's as popular as Ted Cruz, which is not saying much. So I think, and so already we're up to 56. But the other ones I think are going to go blue, I believe, are Nebraska and Kansas, because of what they've gone through and the fact that the loss of the China market for the soybeans that they make there really has hurt them badly, and as well as the taking away their migrant workers, it has really hurt them. So that's where I'm getting the 58 from. And in actuality, there's a possibility it might be higher. South Dakota is not that different from Nebraska in its economy, so South Dakota can go, and Tennessee can go because of the car industry there. They're like the Detroit of the South, right? The car industry has been really, really hurt by Trump's tariff policies. So a number of the companies there are actually pulling out, reducing, or planning to pull out of the United States. Not just Tennessee. They're planning on getting out altogether. Like Honda and Mercedes-Benz and other ones like that. Anyway, so that's where I come up with my 58. And I'm calling this a betrayal realignment because it's really based upon the Trump and Republican Party's betrayal of their base. The farm worker, the farmer, the farm industry has been basically betrayed by Trump. For instance, like shutting down USAID, foreign, which is nice. That was the United States being generous and so forth. Well, great. What were we generous? We were generous with our food production. Great. Well, what did that mean? That meant that our federal government spent about $5 or $6 billion a year giving that money to our farmers around the country for the food that we would then give to places, like Indonesia, India, or Ecuador or whatever. We'd be giving that food away for whatever reason. Political, maybe international political reasons. Well, it doesn't matter. We're giving it away. Maybe as a nation that could be, they could talk about that. But the problem is, it's the farmers that took it on the chin when Trump shut that down. I didn't get hurt by that. I doubt if you got hurt by that. But if you're a farmer, you were hurt by that either indirectly or directly. So that was so that's part of the betrayal, taking away all the migrant workers. By the way, the migrant workers who are supposedly illegal, that was a plot. That was a plan. The Republicans under Reagan made migrant workers illegal. They did that for a reason. They did that because they didn't want to have farmers' strikes like we had under Cesar Chavez in the 60s and 70s. By making the migrant workers illegal, that gave the farmers the ability to pay them below legal wages, below the minimum wage, and not give them any benefits at all. And so that it gave and the migrant workers they couldn't organize, they couldn't do anything. They're basically captured. And so that whole idea of them being illegal migrants, that was actually an invention of the Republican Party by the Republican Party for the farmers. And then somehow the farmers, who obviously are not a very bright group of people, they decided to attack the whole concept of migrant workers. I mean, I'm sorry, but how dumb is that? Really, how really monumentally stupid is that? Migrant workers were built for them, and they decided to do it. Anyway, let me play a little song for you to kind of bring home this whole idea of realignment. Hope you enjoy it. What happened to it? Well, it's not there anymore. Let me bring it up. Here we go.
Realignment's coming, it's really coming. It's in the air, hear it humming. Gonna be great, gonna be grand. You need to vote and take a stand. It's very, very near. Change happens next year. Realignment's coming, it's really coming. Old ways are fading, hear them dying. New voices rising, can't be denied. Democracy's moving, choose a side. The tide is turned, old ways to be burned. Realignment's coming, it's really coming. Many are suffering in a real plight. Please help them see the light is not just you that must take a stand. Your friends and relatives could lend a hand. Realignment's coming, it's really coming. Trump, he lied, he really cheated. Farmers bankrupt, almost defeated. Markets dead and workers gone. Farmers lost, searching for the dawn. Lord, help them find their way. Help them join the great blue way.
Yeah, I hope you like that. I wrote that myself, by the way. AI helped with the singing and the melody, but the lyrics are mine. Anyway, one thing about the realignment I'm talking about is one thing that's happened recently that is kind of validating it. Is there was an election in Minnesota, and it was for some small office. But it was a Democratic area, and they usually win it They usually won it by like 70% or in that area. But they won it 95-5. I don't care where you are in the United States, winning something like 95-5. I mean, usually, heck, even the devil or Hitler would get more than 5%. So having 95-5, that's just absolutely insane. And that really would show about a 25-point swing to the Democrats if you look at it from that standpoint. But extrapolating that to around the nation, and you see that there's going to be places that the Democrats are going to win in November that nobody's planning, nobody's even conceiving of them winning. This is going to be a bad year for them. And then one of the things that is interesting is that the polls are really they're fooling the Republicans into thinking that they're more popular than they are. And I think that's a problem. So, anyway, with that, I'm going to let you go. And hopefully next time I'll have better performance issue. One of these performance issues. I apologize for that. Anyway, if you ever get any thoughts about this, about the realignment, please, leave them in some comments. I'd appreciate that. If you agree with me, great. If you don't agree with me, that's fine too. I'm not always right. So if you, disagree with me, please explain why. What is it that you see coming? If not a realignment like I'm thinking of, we're going to get 58 Democratic senators. What do you think? Do you think we're going to get fewer? How many fewer? 54, 55, 56? Or are we going to lose the Senate altogether, do you think? Or do you think we're going to get more Democratic senators? Who would you think that? That would be wild. Because usually I'm on the top side of that. Anyway, thanks a lot, and I'll be seeing you. I'll be seeing you 9:00 tomorrow evening. As long as I don't have technical issues, which I had some today. That's why I was a little late getting started. I apologize for that. I had some internet issues. I'm kind of pleased that it was stable through this through this episode. That was good. I was glad to see that. Anyway, I'll hopefully see you tomorrow.